Welcome to A.U.M. I'm your host, Kalli Fedosinko of Kalli Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven content, websites, and advertising. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. Now, we normally have our episodes brought to you live in real time, but today our episode is pre-recorded, still recorded live, meaning we don't edit it, but we won't have the ability to answer your questions on air. Please still ask them in the comments and we'll comment back with our answers. So today we're talking with industry expert Duncan McPherson. Duncan is an advisory growth coach helping advisors create playbooks to take their firms to the next stage of growth. And Duncan may not know it, but we've shared some clients. And I've always been super impressed how every single one of them had a defined process, which was easy for my team to promote and use in their content. So today we'll be talking about how advisors can not only create a marketable process, we'll also talk about the steps that you can use in your content to set you apart as an expert. So please welcome with me, Duncan.
Hello, Kalli. How are you?
I am doing good. How are you, Duncan?
Good to see your chipper and cheery self.
Yes, I'm ready to go. Even though it's a little bit later, we're recording an hour later than I normally do. So I had to, eat lunch real fast, chug my cherry Coke.
I'm actually glad because I had a little travel adventure last night that was, let's just say, hard on the body and mind. So I'm highly caffeinated, and I'm glad we're starting a little later because otherwise I wouldn't be here because of that disruption. But all good. Really great to be here.
Travel. I mean, it can go one way or the other.
I just hope for same-day service. That's all I ask for now. I don't, peanuts and a beverage. I expect nothing aside from just getting there.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Duncan, you've got this business, Pareto Systems. Also, did I pronounce your last name right? McPherson?
It's actually goes McPherson, but I've been called a lot, so it works.
Is it Irish?
Scottish.
I love that. My parents lived in Scotland for 5 years before I was born.
It's a beautiful place. Have you been?
I have. I went last year and it was gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Sorry, I totally derailed the topic there. So you have this business, Pareto Systems. How did you get started and how long have you been working with advisors?
I've been working with advisors for about 30 years. It started very accidentally. I had another business, marketing business, actually. And many of my clients were financial professionals, and I just identified it as being a great space. I had a fascination back then with all things around currency. I collected currency from around the world. I studied many aspects of the business and the industry and the players, and just got to know financial advisors, and then started to realize, okay, this is a good place to be.
Yeah. And how are you helping them now? So it started with marketing and then it's developed into coaching from what I understand, but walk us through how you're helping advisors today.
Well, thanks. We have developed and refined a process that starts with helping a financial professional maximize their organic growth model to competitor-proof existing relationships, get out in front of money in motion for total client engagement, and then ultimately advocacy. So they don't need to go out and convince new people to become clients. They just work with the people who are already convinced. So that's the starting point. While we're doing that, we put a huge emphasis on developing enterprise value, right? Because every business is built to be sold. So the end game is to monetize the life's work.
Yep.
And there are some, and this is actually a growing number, about 50% of the clients we work with now actually have ambitions around scaling up to either go out and acquire a business or more, or to attract other advisors to adopt and draft in behind their process. So that's at the core of what we do.
Yeah. And you just brought up process. So there's two different ones. There's the client process, like that you're selling to the client, but then there's also the process of running the business.
Right.
So which one were you just referring to with you help them set up the process?
It's a good distinction. The advisor's way, that's their operating system, right? So that's how they conduct themselves. That's their decorum that creates consistency, creates scalability, ensures that the business serves their life, not the other way around. And that is actually now become client facing. What I mean by that is, for an advisor who hopes to attract business owners, professionals, and executives who all respect and understand standard operating procedure, these advisors are now an open kitchen with their way. They show it off to clients. You know, for example, if you're my client and you own your own business, I will actually show you my fit process so you can understand what it looks like if you were to ever introduce someone to me. Okay, because as an advocate, you need to know how introducing a friend will ultimately come back to reflect on you. So I just demystify that by showing you my way. The other one is ultimately the primary process around achieving professional contrast to stand out from the pack.
Yes.
And that one is the branding strategy. And we really like doing that. We've cracked that code. And I know you're big on this too.
Yeah. I've seen our mutual clients who have those processes set in place. And it makes my job so much easier because it's like they already have something that differentiates them that I can work with. I'm not starting from ground zero.
Yeah, they're in the red zone, right?
Exactly. How important would you say that client process is to the success of an advisor?
Well, I mean, I would say it's non-optional, but then again, I've seen other advisors achieve tremendous success without it. But I think because of the commoditization and the compression and the friction in the space, I think this is developing into something that's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And I can get through, if you want, the progression of how someone gets there. But again, I just come back to professional contrast. It's how you're perceived and how you're described in the marketplace. And we want it to be as self-evident as possible. So we can break that down if you want. But yeah, I would say at this point, it's non-optional.
And I think it goes back to what you were talking about in the beginning with scaling and bringing on new people. If it's a process in place is going to make your business worth more because the next person comes in, it exists there already for them to just step in and take over.
No question about it. And it's interesting. I did a consultation not long ago with a team that did want to scale up and go and acquire a business and attract protege advisors. And so there's 5 people on this team, 5 good people, like great messengers, but disconnected messaging. I asked each of the 5, what do you do? Like, what business are you in? I got 5 answers, right? And a lot of it was data dumping, sort of jargon-filled, commoditized noise.
Yep.
And so good people, strong technical ability. But I said, we've got to start with you 5 and get that synthesized. And then we can start saying, okay, what does it look like to put this in the hands of somebody else so they're not left to their own devices to wing it?
Right.
And so far, so good.
Right. Keeping the vision aligned. Yeah, let's talk about how you help them develop that process. What are the steps that you walk someone through?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing we do is we do basically a gap analysis, just standard diagnostic. You know, where are your gaps? That's ultimately tied into their aspirations in terms of what nirvana looks like for them in the next 5 to 10 years. And then we get into the weeds. And usually the low-hanging fruit is tied to their branding strategy. Now, not to get too esoteric, but the progression is simple. So I have this acronym actually in this book, and it's actually a Venn diagram with the letters K, E, and IP. Okay, so the K is knowledge. So we start with the fact that the advisory team has exceptional knowledge, right? So they're a knowledge for profit professional. They think for a living. They've got the credentials, the designations. They're rock solid. Okay, reputational equity. They're solid. We then say, okay, that box is checked. That's a minimum requirement. Then let's go to expertise. So this is mileage. Okay, there's certain things you need experiential equity. That's, it wasn't learned in a simulator, hypothetically. You've got bench strength. You've got, subject matter expertise. Right. So you go from the knowledge.
You've been through the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the old saying, right? Calm seas never produce a skilled sailor. Like and also you're in tune with your array of services and your advisory. So it's not transactional, it's directional. Then you get to the next frontier, and this is where the breakthroughs happen. You go from knowledge to expertise to IP, intellectual property, where you start to show the world what it is a client can get exclusively from you. It's only from you. So that's where it becomes profound. And that comes back to the fact that you've got your way. So that's classic practice management around the rule of three, which basically
I'm not familiar.
So the rule of three says anything you and your team does cannot reside solely in your heads. If it doesn't, it's skill. It's got to be standardized. It's got to be organized. It's got to be professionalized. The rule of three says anything you do 3 or more times that has 3 or more steps has to be in your playbook. This is your way. How do you engage with a prospective client? How do you onboard a client? How do you service a client? How do you pay tribute to their critical life events? All of that, we've cracked that code. That's intellectual property. That gives scalability. That drives enterprise value. But then it continues. The IP is also how you articulate value. You ask most financial advisors, like, what do you do? What makes you different? And they'll say, okay, we do things a little differently here. We take a holistic approach to planning.
Right. Holistic, comprehensive.
And I'm like, oh, okay, you're the one. Finally, I knew you're out there. You're the one that does that. And I'm like, you're swimming in a pool of sameness. You're using jargon that the marketplace doesn't understand. You're not marketing to yourself. I know, standard deviation, Monte Carlo simulation, asset allocation, all this stuff, but you're not marketing to yourself. So it's not this data dumping. It's the art of articulating your value is framed in brevity, specificity, and proprietary. Brevity. You don't talk about talking about things. It's not a data dump. You don't, we do this, we do this, we do this. No. You get to the point quickly. You stop, you leave them wanting more, you read the room.
Right.
Brevity. Specificity. You talk in meaningful specifics, not wandering generalities that are commoditized. And proprietary. You punctuate it. You can only get this from us. So I talked to an advisor the other day, and he said to me, well, advice and planning and service, we just like to help people. And I said, no.
No.
I said, you don't help people. You have a process that helps people. I want you to start imprinting the thing, not the intention. Okay, you can say to the world all you want. I'm a financial advisor and I help people achieve their financial goals. I would much rather you say, I'm part of a financial services team primarily for a select group of very successful business owners who aspire to a work optional lifestyle. So we've developed and refined a process that puts every piece of the financial puzzle together to provide liberation and order to our clients as they work through their lives. I'm excuse me. You're taking the abstract, commoditized, transactional nature of the business and making it conceptual. It's a thing. Keep imprinting the process. So the thing, not the intention. We help people. No. Advice, part of your process. Service, part of the process. Risk management solutions are part of the process. Tax efficiency, that's part of the process. Value-added services, engaging your CPA and your attorneys, that's all part of the process.
Right.
Preparing your family, part of the process. Just keep hammering and imprinting the thing.
Right. What about people who are like, I don't have a process? I'm just wing it. Or it's different for each client. I've heard that one too.
Yeah.
How do you help them find a repeatable process? Because I think that's key, is it has to be repeatable so somebody else can do it. So your business is more than just you.
Yeah. So again, every business, it can't be the Kalli show or the Duncan show, right? There have to be people in place that have adopted best practices and have a process. Now, let's clarify. Every advisor has a process. There's probably gaps in the process, and they probably don't refer to it as a process. But think about this.
Yeah.
An advisor manages three things. They manage money, they manage a business, and they manage people. When it comes to managing money, they don't wing it. They have a process. But that's becoming commoditized. That's not proprietary. So we have many advisors, Kalli, and you've probably seen this too, that are effectively outsourcing a lot of the asset management. They're getting out of that because it's not proprietary. They're still very good at it. They still study it earnestly. But it's the practice management, the client experience. So think about this. Every advisor has a process to meet with a prospective client. It's probably up here. There's probably gaps. So we say, get it out of here, identify the gaps, address the gaps. Now it's a thing.
Right.
Onboarding a client. You've got to, every advisor listening is onboarded clients. They have a way. But is it IP or is it just an intention? Okay. So, a fit process would have typically 12 steps. Sequential. The onboarding process would have to transition a client from their former environment to yours and to fast track them to advocacy. There'd probably be 15 steps, plus or minus.
Right.
Let's get them all laid out. And we have a placeholder and a template, and we have a process to help somebody deploy a process.
I'm shocked.
Incredible. I just literally thought of that now. I'm like, wow, okay, we're eating our own cooking. That's cool. But yeah, so every advisor has a process. They probably just don't refer to it as one, and there's probably gaps in it, but it's easy to address. And most advisors could refine and optimize and deploy an improved process within 90 to 120 days. And then have that all culminate into their own playbook, their own procedures manual.
Also, what you're seeing fits so nicely with what we call at Kalli Collective the client journey of what are the steps or the micro commitments that somebody has to take to become a client and then become an advocate. Because we want to make sure from the marketing perspective, we're hitting them at each step with a touch point, whether that's in an email or a social media post or message or whatever it might be that fits the advisor's process. So yeah, I can see how powerful it is to have it written down, because then everybody can follow those steps.
Okay, well, first of all, micro commitment, like that is such a modern, cool phrase.
Yeah.
I'll be taking that. So,
you can thank our other guest, Nicole Kramer.
Okay. Micro commitment. That's cool. Okay. So to your point, an enlightened financial professional and their team will bookend client service with client experience. So client service is basically conveying to the clients that, look, there is a red phone under a glass jar sitting on our desk, and when it rings, the world stops. Okay, you have a need that requires attention and must be addressed. We're on it. That's reactive. Now you can get out in front of that. You can identify unmet needs. You can get out in front of developing needs, but that's client service. That makes you referable. That creates loyalty. Really important. When you book then that with client experience, that's not reactive. That's proactive. That's scheduled. So to your point, micro commitments, 12, the 12-4-2 chassis, 12 scheduled touches, one a month. That is just, it shows up. It's like clockwork. Okay, like Q4, we tell our clients, send your clients a Thanksgiving card. That's a touch. Okay, thanks for a great relationship. Have a great weekend with your family. It's a great idea. Simple, huge ROI. You got to keep doing it. You got to level up and then keep it up consistently. That is not promissory on performance of a product. This is what it means to be our client. This is our client experience. That's intellectual property. So you have culture and decorum, then you have client experience. When those two are in place, here's what happens. I feel compelled to share that with somebody.
Yeah.
An advocate does not refer a friend to a financial advisor because the advocate's trying to help the advisor grow their business. That's not why. That's not the incentive. You know the old chestnut, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. You know what the incentive is?
They had a great experience.
And I feel like I'm doing my friend a disservice by not sharing it with them.
Right.
When I get to that point of conviction and clarity and buy-in, the fish jump in the boat. And here's the best part. You never have to ask for referrals. Just be referable. Give your clients something to brag about. And then just watch the phone ring. Because advocates, you know what they do? They don't say to a friend, hey, call Kalli. She's great. You know what advocates do? They call Kalli. They say, Kalli, do me a favor. Talk to my friend.
Right.
I've explained your process. He wants to talk to you. Okay, do me a favor. Talk to him. That's what advocates do. They take action. They don't just have this fleeting endorsement that goes to someone's head to die. They actually say to the friend, I got this. I know somebody. I'll make the introduction.
Yeah. So let's talk about the delivery of the process, because something I've appreciated about clients that work with you is that not only do they have a process, but it's usually something catchy and memorable, which again makes my job easier. So how do you find that, that the catchiness?
Yeah, it's a great point. And this is the art to the science.
Yeah.
This is creating a brand identity and a brand within a brand. So, virtually every financial advisory team you work with is branded their practice. So we say, let's create a brand within that brand. It's like the Intel Inside sticker on a computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so a computer powered by, right? So Dell computer, Intel Inside, two brands that give it credibility. So a typical financial professional has branded their practice. So let's just say it's Cornerstone Wealth. Okay, that's the practice, whatever it happens to be. Okay, now we say, how many things could you do for a client over the lifetime of the relationship? And they're like, well, I don't know, it's everything. We do it all. And I go, no. Know your number, do your inventory, get it all. An average, typical, high caliber financial advisor could do as many as 85 things for a client over the lifetime of the relationship. Some do more, some do less, not the point. Know your number, do your inventory, take it from abstract to specific, 85 pieces of the puzzle you put together to give the client the whole picture. Okay. So that's the starting point. And we have a framework to position all that for a client. Now let's call it something.
Yeah.
Let's give it a name. So Cornerstone Wealth, let's call your process the stepping stone formula. So imagine on the bottom of the agenda, that
Mm-hmm.
an advisor uses with a client. At the bottom right, it says powered by the stepping stone formula.
Right.
So somebody looks at that and goes, what is that? Well, that's our process.
Our
Okay.
proprietary process.
Yeah. So when I say, Kalli, when I say to you, okay, so let's just say I'm an advisor, you're a prospective client, you say, hey, I'm wondering what makes you different.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it, but we have great people. We have a great practice of standard operating procedures that our clients really appreciate in terms of its consistency. And we've developed and refined a process, and we call it the stepping stone formula.
Mm-hmm.
How does that land? Like in your inside voice, when I stop talking and I say that, what's going on in your brain when I say that?
This is a real professional.
Yeah, this is a professional. I've never heard this before. And what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to give me permission. You're probably going to say to me as a prospective client, well, how does that work?
Right.
Now I've got a captive audience. So I'm going to say, well, I'm a goals-based professional, which means I know what my clients' needs are, but I also know what their aspirations are. Directionally, where's this all going? So we call it a formula because within the word formula, it's preset, it's all designed, but the word form is in the word formula, and form speaks to my clients' goals around their family, their occupation, their recreational aspirations, and of course, their money. Money is a means to those ends. So that's why it's a formula. Stepping stone is it's a progression. It builds on itself. It's directionally taking somebody somewhere and designed to keep them on track. Because as you know, it's not the wind, it's the set of the sail. I mean, the wind blows the same for everybody. And sometimes there's storms and sometimes it's calm. But we just make sure we focus on what matters to our clients and what we can control. We make adjustments. And that's why we call it the stepping stone formula. So that's obviously simplified and accelerated, but that's just an example of how to create a brand identity. So at the bottom of emails, it would say, ask us about the stepping stone formula.
Right.
On the website, under About Us, home of the stepping stone formula. And here's what's great. Financial professional gets a massive referral from a long-term client. It's the first introduction they've ever made. The advisor calls up the advocate and says, hey, thanks for introducing your friend to me. Means the world. I have to ask, when I met your friend, I mean, he was so bought in and predisposed. What did you say? How did you describe us? And the client says, what did I say? Well, I had my friend over for a barbecue. He went off on a rant about his current advisor, asked me how I felt about mine. I told him I've had others. I've told him I've never felt better. I told him if anything ever happened to me, the second or third call my wife makes is to you. And then you know what? I just explained your process. So now they're mirroring your value.
Yep.
Not in terms of what you do, but what the value does. Not commentary on performance, but what it means to be your client. See, that's where conviction and advocacy goes through the roof.
Yeah. That so powerful. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Duncan, but this was so great. And I really appreciated everything that you've shared with us because I couldn't agree more. For those watching, if you want to reach out to Duncan or learn more about Pareto, you can go to inquiries@paretosystems.com or check out his website, paretosystems.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those watching, find out what your marketing score is. Are you savvy or are you sorry? And then lastly, join us next week as we talk with Andrew Shedlock about the regulations around testimonials. He is an attorney and he will give us the 411 on